western highway unspooled across Wyoming like a thin scar under a moon too pale to offer comfort, and Benjamin Collins kept a minivan steady with the rigid focus of a man bargaining with exhaustion. His shoulders burned, wrists sore from the small correction sleepiness demanded. The heater pushed lukewarm air that smelled faintly of coffee and old fries, and for a long mile he believed foolishly that the night would allow them to pass unremarked. Pamela slept in fragments, cheek to the glass, fogging crescents, then appeared and vanished as if the window were practicing breathing. Boris had his hood up, earbuds in with no music playing, pretending the highway's emptiness didn't make his thoughts echo. Perla cradled a notebook shut, guarding the odd drawings she'd made at gas stops. Corridors with no windows, rooms wider inside than out. Little Zeta 7 clutched a soft rabbit, its left ear hanging by a tired loop of thread. In places like this the stars felt industrial, as if hammered into the sky and left too cool. They seemed generous but wouldn't help you, they only watched. When the green sign rose from the dark, rest area 1 mile. Benjamin exhaled through his nose in relief he didn't dare announce. He tapped the blinker for the nobody behind them and let the van drift onto the exit ramp. The tires, whispering over gravel someone had spread long ago and forgotten. The rest stopped, hunched in the weeds like building that had tried to live and failed. Two fluorescent tubes buzzed over a concrete entry, light jittering to way nerves to after too much coffee. Picnic tables slumped in a row, grey with splinters and wind. The lat was cracked and sown with wiregrass. A metal service door on the side had a bulge, as though something had pushed from within for a long time and then decided to wait. Benjamin parked nose out his ritual in unlabeled places, and let the engine tick itself quiet. The moment the phone bell stilled, the world got louder. The long choir of nothing, a static so complete it felt like snow. He rolled his neck until it popped, then looked at his family, his soft, breakable reasons, while his lungs learned the air outside the vents. Quick stop, he said, but speech sounded presumptuous. The night felt like a room where conversation wasn't allowed. Zeta's eyes were glassy with sleep when she said she could go alone because brave girls did that now. Pamela, trusting the lessons they'd been practicing and distrusting the hour, touched her daughter's shoulder, the small push that means come right back. The rabbit came along out of habit. Zeta hopped from the van and crossed the concrete in tiny steps that left no sound, and the big door complained with an elongated groan as she howled it open. The restroom was larger than the building promised, as if the architect had cheated the outside to reward the inside. Light gushed from the front half, all buzzing tubes and plastic glare. Beyond that brightness, a straight line cut the room in two. Past the line, darkness was not shadow, but material, a black pain that rejected even the courtesy of gray. The air smelled of metal and scrap tile and whisper of something sweet gone bad. Somewhere in the dark half, water was running with a strange insistence. Plip, plip, like a metronome missing its heart. The faint echo didn't decay so much as travel sideways through the room, as if the tiles carried it along in seams. Zeta made for a stall just inside the safe light, set the rabbit on the counter with ceremony, and latched the door, feeling older for the click. Her feet swung above the floor. On the third swing the drip stopped. Silence revealed itself as weight in that held breath of a room. Zeta heard bones in her ears tick, the way they do after a deep dive. Stole three down yawned, a fingers braided, and side closed again. Featherlight. She told herself not to be silly, not to imagine stories. She slid the latch, pushed the door, and reached for the far corner of the counter where the rabbit waited. Head tilt as if listening for her. Her hand touched air that was not air. The bright edge rippled beneath her fingers the way pond water wrinkles around a dragonfly, and the counter's corner shifted sideways, as if drawn along a track she couldn't see. The rabbit skittered left without moving forward. Zeta made a small mistake of breath, one of those tiny gasps that never become a cry. The room accepted the moment. She didn't fall. She simply ceased to be where she had been. Pamela counted to a number she trusted and then to another she didn't. The wrong kind of quiet sat down on her lungs. She told Benjamin, I will check, and the words were too loud, like speaking in a church. Inside, the odor pulled her back to old basement and winter laundry rooms, to the exact metal smell of water that refuses to leave. She called Zeta's name. The name left her mouth and didn't come back. The tiles listened, unsympathetic. The rabbits lay on the counter, in a damp halo that was not quite a circle, as if the moisture had decided on a different geometry. Pamela touched the fur. The damp was cooler than air, colder than reason. She followed the bright, dark border, the way hikers test cornice edges. Heel first, then wait. A bowl brimmed to the lip in a stall, surface trembling with a heartbeat that didn't belong to pipe or pump. The hair on her arms rose together, one organism deciding. She turned to leave and discovered repetition had replaced the door, more stalls, more almost clean, more practical beige. The room had tidied away, her exit like a hostess whisking off a plate. Behind her something soft bumped a door, thump, then dragged, then thump again, patient. Pamela reached for the counter to steady herself and felt not surface but the wet memory of one. When she pulled back, a fogged handprint bloomed and held as if it were on the wrong side of glass. She didn't run, the room ran her, sliding its pieces until she stood somewhere she had not walked to the humming. She had not walked to. The humming light hopped twice and steadied. From the unlit side came the wet syllables of her own name. Not sound, exactly, but the shape of it. The stalls along the shadow line settled in a quiet seconds, and the drip resumed from a height inconsistent with the sailing. Pamela inhaled to call for Benjamin, and the breath dissolved like salt. There was a way to live without moving. Pamela found it the way a coin finds the bottom of a well, simple, inevitable, with a soft end. The tiles under her feet seemed to rise politely, the air accept her outline, and she was gone with the modest authority of a sentence wiped from a fogged mirror by an unseen thumb. The room, composed as a clerk, returned to its ledger of light and dark, entry complete. Time behaved wrong Benjamin, expanding and contracting like a muscle cramp. He texted Pamela, called, radialed. A faint buzz answered from a distance both near and impassable. He told Boris to lock the doors and keep Perla from doing anything heroic, then walked toward the entry with the careful, angry calm of a man about to negotiate with a thing that doesn't negotiate. The door handle felt tacky, not dirty, like kindness that hadn't dried. Inside smelled like an old coin in your mouth. Benjamin had cleaned hospital floors in other life. He knew how empty rooms spoke after midnight. This room's grammar was all pressure and glottal stops, a language without vowels. He tested stall doors with 2 fingers, open, close, until the pattern failed in a way that made him feel hypnotized. The rabbit's ear dangled by fatigued thread. He lifted it. The seam parted with a tender rip the room refused to echo. In the mirror, a mouth-shaped fog appeared where no face stood. It had the precise oval made by breath. Behind his shoulder, in the unlit half, a door turned with hinge confidence where there was no hinge at all. He steadied his jaw, gathered the scattered pieces of panic into a single useful weight, and reached for the entry he'd come through. The building let him have it this once, like a tight easing of a boot. At the one he pressed a ragged ear into Perla's palm. 5 minutes, he said, voice low and shaped like a plan. If I'm not back, you drive to the ramp and wait under the sign. Flash brights if anyone comes. Don't play brave. He touched Boris' shoulder. The squeeze that means I know you are going to disobey. Please disobey smart. He turned back, the lot somehow canted a degree left, as though gravity had reconsidered. The second time he entered the room had grown a rib. He felt it more than saw it, the way you sense a gymnasium even with your eyes closed. A blank service door had joined the wall, handleless, an oval keyhole cut too long. Adhesive rectangle above it sticky with the ghost of an official sign. Zeta, he said, the way one calls a bird, soft enough not to startle. Her name fell downward, coin sure, and the balls answered with a wave that ran the wrong way. From a deep graded basin, a ribbon of hair lifted as if drawn by an upward current, then laid itself back down like a cat sued. Behind him, child's small wet prints appeared on tile, then adult, then child again. A loop playing favorites. He didn't see his shadow separate like smoke. He did feel his balance shift forward as if a gentle hand pressed his sternum. Disappearance became a modest verb, a soft chain pulled in a windowless room. In the van, Boris counted 5 minutes and distrusted both. The heater's stick felt like a metronome on the wrong song. Perla placed the torn ear in the cup holder. I ticked home is if such a machine existed. I'm going, Boris said, into the wheel because promising his sister out loud would make her hold him. He opened the door into a cold that felt organized. The fluorescent tubes jittered as if greeting him by name. The room, cunning as water, disguised itself for the boy. The light steadied, the smell softened. A familiar mirror greeted him with toothpaste constellations. 3 old nickels winked from a grout line, like proof that physics still collected rent. Dad, he tried, then Mom. He saved Zeta because he knew names mattered, even if he didn't know why. From the dark, humming swelled, as if someone were practicing a lullaby with a mouth full of water. He stepped toward the unlit half and felt heat on his nape as if a bonfire crouched behind the black pane. He put his hand up, and the air pushed back with a grain, like silk rubbed the wrong way. He smiled, because fear sometimes makes boys theatrical. See, he told himself, nothing. He took one more step, because not taking it felt like cowardice. And the room rewarded him by making courage indistinguishable from consent. Going can be slow, the shape of him thinned into suggestion. Suggestion collapsed into a dent in air where weight had been. The dent faded like sofa memory. The nickels rolled a cheerful distance and settled in a line. There wasn't even a scaff left for Perla to find. Only the humming paused politely, then resumed at a slightly happier key, as if a note had finally been resolved. Perla sat very still, because moving would make it through. The lads felt a fraction larger, the minivan a fraction smaller, realities sliding on hidden rails. She pressed her knuckles into her sternum until a useful pain arrived. Then she locked the van, left the keys face up like instruction for a stranger, and walked toward the door at the practiced pace of a girl who'd learned the trick of not rushing when everything inside wanted to run. The room received her, resizing itself to fit the budget of her belief. She saw what the others had only felt, how identity traveled along the row of doors like a signal, open, closed, closed, open, closed, open, repeating, not in position but in character, as if the veneer were a screen on which sameness played. The bright, dark border was knife clean, the kind of a cut patient artisan makes. The drip now had rhythm, long, short, long, long, as if practicing an alphabet. In the mirror, a girl stood where she stood, hair tips wet, as if water had clipped the strands. Pearlie raised her hand, and the mirror did not mirror. It offered something else, another choice of her. From the unlit hall came breathing layered like thin blankets. Many shallow breaths stacked until they made weather. Fear rose to her throat and slid back down after it got bored with her calm. She gave herself a task. Inventory these scripts. One was wrong, turned 30 degrees off, and I looking at an offstage point. Perla, who always picked the thing that didn't match, went to it. The pressure between door and jamb met her hands like magnets with wrong poles. She made her fingers a blade, slid them into that pressure, and felt a latch that both existed and adapted itself. She lifted. The door opened onto a stall that shouldn't have been brighter than the room. It was. The bowl gleamed. Nothing hid. Names felt like bait here, so she mouthed Boris without sound. The silence answered with a soft shape that wasn't an echo. Wet footprints, three size, Zeta small, Pamela long. Benjamin solid. Walked outward and then disappeared halfway, the way steps vanish up a staircase in fog. Perla reached where the door ought to be. Her forearm slid into the wall as if the space had been waiting for that exact outline. The new air recognized her and held with obscene tenderness. She could have resisted. Resistance would have left no mark. Instead, she allowed 1 inch more, then two, like a swimmer testing temperature. A faint static built in her teeth. For a ridiculous moment, she thought of the rabbit's ear in the cup holder, and some real part of the world tugged back at her sleeve. She moved anyway, the way growing up moves you, forward whether or not you consent. When the room took her, it did it gently, almost kindly. Dawn rinsed the highway with skim-milk light. A tracker pulled in for a nap he wouldn't admit he needed and saw the minivan. Nose out, doors looked. Dawn rinsed the highway with skim-milk like a trucker pulled in for a nap he wouldn't admit he needed and saw the minivan. Nose out, doors locked. Child's sketchbook open on a seat like a hand. He used the men's side, which performed normalcy. Urinals, one bed latch, graffiti old enough to have dignity. Water refused to bead on his calloused palms. He passed the handleless service door and felt not cold or heat but zero. The exact middle. He left without turning around. Highway patrol arrived, practical men and women with coffee, breath, and good boots. Dogs sat at the threshold and then farther away, making their message clear without theatrics. The blueprint in records didn't match the floor by 8 feet. Refurbishment, someone said, without licking the sound. Cameras had recorded faithfully until 1 hour 13, then displayed a different lobby that shared the bones, if not the soul. The feed returned at 4 hour 2, with a wet handprint crusted beneath the lens. Distilled said the lab. The report typed itself toward language that could be insured. The trooper who logged evidence noted Zeta's drawings smelled faintly of bleach and rain. Buildings without windows had learned reflections. A mouth-shaped room had teeth of tile. He did not write the part about the rabbit ear, he thought. He saw in the periphery, repaired with stitches that braided in an unfamiliar pattern. He rubbed his eyes, and the ear was only a smear of sun in the glass. A maintenance crew opened a clean-out in a corridor mapped only on paper. Clear water slid out over their boots carrying small, polite impossibilities. 3 mid-century nickels with softened faces, a woman's hair tie with a single pale, flamant that both was and wasn't there depending on the angle, a map corner listing a retired speed limit, and a damp wad of plush that resolved into a rabbit ear stitched in a machine's thread that belonged to no machine. A week later a ranch kid found a denim jacket folded for church beside a frozen stock pond miles away where no one walked. In the pocket a postcard shard of mirror had its silver stretched into a drawing of a room that did not map to the world. When you breathed on the glass, the ghost of a handprint appeared, small, then large, then smaller again, as if several people were trying to remember how to leave a message politely. Months on, a plow uncovered Pamela's pond, under wind carved snow where no drifts should have been. The battery bulged like a breeze. A private tag pulled three new photos from a dead interval between images of Zeta sleeping in the van, black, black, and then growled in magnified detail. Sand grains like stars, a single hair pointing toward whatever lived just out of frame. GPS thought the shots had been taken in the middle of a lake dry since 1980. Officially, nothing else was recovered. Unofficially, two gray men who knew drains claimed that, late one Thursday, a trap at the base of a vertical run held shoes in a neat, heel-to-toe row, four pairs and one small single, damp and warm the way fabric feels when feet have just vacated. They did not enter them into the chain of custody. They did not say the brand names out loud. They went home and slept badly on the good pillow. People at diners started calling the place Black Hollow as if they'd known it all along. The name moved with coffee mugs and pie plates with the quiet certainty of road lore. Sometimes a line cook said he could smell metal when a snow squall blew from the south. A kid on a dirt bike said the air around the boarded door felt like a speaker humming with a song you couldn't quite hear, and that if you held your breath, you could taste bleach on your teeth. The state closed the rest stop for refurbishment, then for demolition, and at last for the kind of paperwork that pets time. They draw new scripts all pointing the same direction into plywood over the entrance. They posted next service 42 miles. Drivers reported seeing light anyway, the tube stuttering in a pattern Perla would have called greeting and Benjamin might have filled under random. On windless nights, a drip echoed from nowhere with the promise of a room learning your name. A woman towing a camper's sword, she saw a family of four standing where the doorway had been. Father England just saw, mother's hair wrung in the wind, boy pale and attentive, middle girl steadying something in her hand. When the woman slowed, the figures blinked out like pixels losing signals. Later she said the smallest one, perhaps a fifth, had been there only when she looked not quite at them. She has not told her husband this detail, she sleeps in socks now. A highway worker poured fresh cement at dawn and found, by lunch, small footprints crossing the path and ending in the center as if the walker had gone upstairs into air. He smoothed them with his trowel while no one watched and told the story only once, because saying a thing out loud carves a way for it to return. A rowan landed on the plywood and tapped the board 3 times. The worker flinched like a child. He did not know why. Not everyone believes in being misplaced, but the ones who do talk about borders, the precise rims of mirrors, thresholds, county lines, the ages of maps that say here we nothing. They say Black Hollow wasn't hungry so much as dutiful, like a mouth doing the work of a body that never asked to eat. They say sometimes the world forgets how wide it is, and practice rooms open up to help it remember. They say the Collins family found a widget the rest of us don't want. On certain midnight drives, if you slow to the legal minimum and roll your window down, the air tastes faintly of laundromat coin and winter tap. If you are unlucky, you will hear a man counting softly the numbers careful, as if he is measuring a perimeter one tile at a time. If you are very unlucky, you will hear a girl laugh clipped in halves by tile, and a woman inhale to speak and then not speak because she has learned the cost of names. The story grows details the way frost grows its fronts. Someone swears the rabbit ear. The parrot hangs sometimes from the service door's keyhole, wagging gently as if a breath from the other side can't quite decide to commit. Someone else says nickels keep appearing on the counter, 3 at a time, all the same year if you look closely enough. No one agrees which year, everyone agrees a mirror shot turns up now and then in the weeds and never reflects quite what is in front of it. You could rail at the state, at geometry, at darkness, at God, or you could keep driving. Most choose the second because rage is fuel and fuel runs out. In track caps and sagging boots, people practice how to refuse invitations. If you hear dripping where there are no pipes, no. If a door opens on hinges that aren't there, no. If a familiar voice speaks without a mouth, especially no. Practice helps. Not always, but sometimes practice is all the world will offer. The demolition left a rectangle of paler ground and the confusion of utility stops that made no sense to the new crew. Someone staked pink flags, someone else measured and frowned. The superintendent signed off because concrete doesn't argue. Yet a year later, a drone video taken at dusk shows a simmer in the weeds, a ghost footprint of a roofline, light catching a geometry that the drone's owner swears he didn't program and can't reproduce. He deleted the clip after 3 replays. He sleeps with a lamp on now. The family remains present in the ways that families do even when they are gone. A Christmas card list with 5 names unstruck, school copies, holding a notebook of windowless room, a DMV renewal that prints automatically and arrives at an empty mailbox, a grandmother who still sets 5 plates when tired and scolds herself softly for the indulgence. Grief collects in practical corners. It smells like cardboard and lemon cleaner and a coin you forgot in your mouth. If you stop where the rest stop was, and you should not, you will notice the quiet is not absence, but a full container. Put your hand in the air, and you may feel grain, the silk backward sensation of a border. Do not say anyone's name, not even your own. If something brushes your ankle like a cat, stand still until the curiosity passes. If you hear water running in a rhythm that suggested it has learned to count, let it finish its lessons without you. Keep the van nose out and the story nose forward. Some places along the road are only rooms practicing appetite, and some nights are only the world stretching to remember it's through with it. Drive until your breath finds you again. In your mirror, you might see a man testing tiles, a woman measuring air with her hands, a boy balancing courage and consent, a middle girl making the right choice too late, a little one hugging a rabbit with a neatly repaired ear. If you see them, don't slow. The lights only tell half the truth.